Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Most people out there are probably in a food coma right now. We had 9 straight hours over there with Jerry Kirby and everybody and Audrey's family. And, man, it was fun. We ate 2 rounds, well, 5 rounds, actually. If anybody showed signs of life, they were fed more and knocked back out, quickly put into a food coma. But watched a lot of football yesterday. Ended up with the Egg Bowl last night. You know, going into the game, Yancey Porter is going to join us from the mountains in beautiful western North Carolina here in just a moment. But bring them on, Audrey. And I watched the Ole Miss game. Going into the Egg Bowl last night, that series was tied in the last 30 years. Ole Miss had won 15 and State had won 15. Nobody else had won any. And went down to the wire last night. Weird game. A lot happening. But Yancey Porter, Jimmy Hodge on here with us right now. We'll be joined in the second segment by Roman Harper from SEC Network, who's on his way to Tuscaloosa for the Iron Bowl. And we'll also, top of the second hour, Frank Duffy is going to check in from, he is perhaps the world's most interesting man. I'm not even sure where, probably back in New Orleans. He's been going back and forth to New Orleans and Atlanta. So Frank will check in with us. And then in caps from Dallas, right next to Darrell K. Royal Memorial Stadium. God only knows where he's eating. Frank is in the mountains of North Georgia.
Rob, I'm so confused. I don't even know. I think I jumped on an hour early. I apologize.
We've got a lot to talk about here football-wise today. Next 2 hours, as we are every Monday through Saturday, www.sidelines.live. If you missed us, go to 680thefan.com, the podcast park in Atlanta. And those people listening on Kicks 96.3, Alexander City, Lake Martin, and Radio Alabama Group. A lot to talk about. So let's get going. Yancey should be on here with us in a second. But, Frank, you watched the Egg Bowl last night on the Color TV. And that Ole Miss team, and I'm going to ask Yancey this, they've lost 4 of their last 5 games. I know the schedule was back end loaded, but now you've got Ole Miss fans really, really down in the dumps. And then you got Auburn fans going, if this is our next coach, are we buying a car with 4 bald tires?
Well, I will.
What do you think, Frank?
Maybe I'm off on the wrong hour because I couldn't count, because I sure know that Lane Kiffin couldn't count. I don't know what he was doing, using up 2 timeouts last night. That made no sense at all. When you have the possibility of not making that 2-point conversion to tie the game, and then having to put your defense back out there. It just doesn't make sense. It was not a good coaching performance. It looked like a man to me on the sideline who was distracted, in my humble opinion. Yeah. And I will tell you, LSU beating Ole Miss in Tiger Stadium has sent them off on a gyroscope type whirly-bird I mean, I'm shocked. Who would have thought that Mississippi State and Ole Miss a month ago would have ended up with actually State looking like the better team finishing off the season?
Well, it was a defensive struggle for most of the game, Frank and Jimmy. I mean, and it started raining, but again, it rained on both teams. So the rain was not a factor in the game. I don't want to hear that. Anyone does, they're in timeout for the rest of the show. Because I look at this Ole Miss situation, and their offense was so unimaginative. And Zach Evans and Keyshawn Judkins both are stud running backs. You've got to find a way to do more with them. But, man, what Ole Miss, Jonathan Mingo is the name everybody talks about. But the lack of a big-time passing game, I don't know if Jackson Dart, that's the guy that Lane Kiffin thinks is the man at quarterback. But it just looked to me they were totally out of sync most of the night. I mean, that first, it looks a lot like Gus Malzahn. That first drive was brilliant. It was scripted, okay? And then once the other team's defensive coordinator and Zach Arnett, You saw him on the sidelines, and that guy's going to get a job. I don't see him leaving State for a vertical, for a lateral move, but a vertical, yes. But there was just once Mississippi State stopped him, held him to a field goal, Ole Miss on that first drive. It looks like they did a better job adjusting throughout the game.
Yeah.
Compared to Ole Miss. And the running game for State, Jimmy, was they just pounded it. They just looked like the more confident team in that game. And Lane Kiffin, I don't know. Look, all this talk about him going to Auburn.
Distracted. I'm telling you, the guy looked distracted on the sideline.
Here's something here's something that Stat Tiger said to me. He said, I noticed Lane Kiffin goes to Twitter to say, I'm staying. Where are his players on Twitter saying, yeah, Coach Kiffin told us he's staying? I don't know what's going on, but this you can put up, if you want to blame something, firing coaches midseason because of the December signing period has caused this, and it's Ole Miss's season was ruined, losing 4 of the last 5. That's not the only reason, but I bet you it didn't help.
Well, here's the funny thing. I was on a big – now you, me, and Jimmy were on a thread with Maury last night. And by the way, to Jimmy's great point last night, Ole Miss was lucky to even have a shot because Rogers hands the ball off on that play and doesn't fumble. At the very least, you got a 10-point lead, right?
Yes.
But I was on a thread with some other buddies before the game. Everybody was trying to figure out, a lot of LSU guys, trying to figure out who we're going to bet. And I, not that this helped on the bet any, but I made the comment that, if Lane's going, he's going to be distracted. Their team's going to be in disarray. And if he's staying, well, they'll be playing sky high. So I didn't see the sky high last night. I didn't see the sharp execution, which makes me think that behind the scenes, irregardless of what he's tweeting, where there's smoke, there's fire. And like I said, he just looked distracted on the sideline to me, throughout the whole game. I mean, Jimmy, what did you see? I mean, that's what I saw.
Yeah. Well, what I thought,
ADD.
What I saw was basically the defenses on both sides controlling the game, especially State. I mean, I thought would be at a huge disadvantage once the rain became a factor because they're an air raid team. Although their running game has improved, it's certainly not a big part of their offense, but yet coming into this game, who would have thought that State would have 25 more rushing yards than Ole Miss? Right. I mean, Ole Miss has those 2 running backs, Judkins and Evans, who, in a couple of games had piled up over 300 yards rushing. At least they were the 2 big components. And then for State just to shut them down like they did, and then the sacks they were able to get on Dart, were really impressive. And I just thought in bad weather conditions, that would be a big advantage for Ole Miss, but it didn't turn out that way. But I thought maybe the biggest hidden play of the game was when State threw that touchdown pass with 5 or 6 seconds left in the first half.
Wide open.
16-7. If that would have been, a more than a
Jimmy, your internet. Okay. Yeah. So, Jimmy, we're getting a signal. I can barely hear you.
Okay, maybe I need to check
now, Rob.
volume.
Technically, Rob, I can hear him well. Just to let y'all know, I can.
Hear it's breaking up every other word. It just maybe. Keep going, Jimmy.
Yeah. So that touchdown right before the half was absolutely huge, and then again, as the game went on, I think. Again, State just gained a lot more confidence that they could play with Ole Miss, in that style of game. So I see Rob there. Looks like he's not.
Jimmy, check your signal real quick because it's breaking up.
I'll carry the ball for a little bit. I know what Jimmy's talking about. You're exactly right.
I wanted to hear Jimmy. I just couldn't. It was breaking up every other word.
Jackson Dart, you're exactly right, Jimmy. Your point about him looking. Mississippi State's defense had him out of position the entire night. He never got comfortable back there. Their pass rush, was making him, have to move all night. And you would think that with Ole Miss and those running backs, why didn't they dump the ball off more to their backs? I mean, it would make more sense, especially on a wet field, and not being able to get their receivers out in their routes. But they never did that all night. They didn't use them. And so the Ole Miss game plan was just it seemed off, and it seemed like they never adjusted it.
It didn't. The team did not look, Jimmy, like they were on the same page. And I've seen, we've all seen teams when the coach is leaving.
Yes.
And it's pretty obvious. But I mean, I tell you what, I don't care who you're a fan of. You don't want this to happen to your school, but Ole Miss was better than losing 4 of the last 5, Jimmy. And hopefully we got that worked out on your end. But that's how I take it. Would you agree?
Yeah, but again, we all knew their schedule was backloaded too. You know, that their biggest games were going to be in the last month or so. And then you had some, opponents that started to, play better as the regular season neared its end. And that's a sign of a really good coaching. And again, State was in, I think, a really good position leading up to this game because everybody was talking about Kiffin and his possible move to Auburn and all
Texas
the controversy
A&M.
That created. And not as much. I mean, they still have a coach as far as I know, but maybe not after the LSU game, but still.
I hope not after tomorrow.
But again, don't you want Jimbo to stay there, Frank?
I do and I don't. Look, Jimbo recruits. I'll take my chances against a coach at A&M that can't recruit because I don't want him coming in and pilfering in Louisiana, and I want to own Houston. That was the beauty of bringing in the Aggies and us beating snot bubbles out of them for the first 7 years that they were here in the conference. Was we were now going into Houston and Texas and getting these blue. Well, Hal Perkins Jr. I mean, Texas man. So I want Jumbo to stay, but I also want Jumbo to go. And if Jumbo goes, let me tell you, it's gonna be with an LSU ass whipping on running him out of College Station.
Well, you've always got to be careful of the fan bases, especially your rivals that are saying, "Oh, you've got a good coach. You just need to give him time." I mean, Coach Bart,
at Texas A&M from Louisiana.
Coach Bryant thought that Doug Barfield was doing an outstanding job at Auburn. He's a fine man, a good Christian man, fine man. If you're Auburn and you listen,
doing awesome over there in Starkville.
Yeah. and look, Jimmy, thinking about this,
Mike Jewell is a fine American.
Yes. And you start looking around at the job some of these coaches do. And then Jimmy, you're right. As the season goes on, teams usually get better. That's certainly the case of Brian Kelly. But man, that Mississippi State last night, that Williams guy, running back, what a beast. I mean, I think he listened to his coach from, Pop Warner on up. Keep those legs moving, just nonstop, just leg drive. That guy. He was a load. Ole Miss just looked passive in that game last night, Jimmy.
Well, when they were up 16-7, they didn't look passive. They had, Knox Kiffin with the fire extinguisher, smoke machine there and all that. Hey, man, when you're winning and everything's going well, everything looks hunky-dory. But, it really comes down to how you respond, though, when things get really tight and with the game on the line. And I tell you what, I was just really impressed with how State really matched up with Ole Miss on the line of scrimmage because, again, when the rain became a serious factor in the game in the second half, I thought that would give Ole Miss a big advantage, but State was having none of it. Yeah. And, they came in there, and I think they were in kind of under the radar, so they were just able to focus on their preparation for this game where all the chaos was in Oxford. But I thought, though, especially in the trenches, the players don't have time to worry all about that stuff, especially the guys, seniors and so forth. They know that's going to be their last game at Vaught Hemingway. And no matter who's coaching them, they want to leave with a win. They want their legacy to be, hey, we won the Iron Bowl, and it was my last home game, at Vaught Hemingway, and we came away with the win, and we extended that streak.
Well, and Rob, especially the way that Ole Miss and Jimmy, they closed last year. They really closed very well, especially their defense. Their defense got exponentially better as the year went on, and it was the exact opposite this year. And look, their schedule was just as backloaded last year. So I think it goes to there. I think there's been distractions since Potato Boy, headed back to go, PLM Spuds. You just see a different Ole Miss.
Yeah, they are, and we're about to go to a break. I just think that I hate, if I'm a fan of a school or if I'm a coach, to have a back-end loaded schedule. You'd like to play your games just, dispersed throughout the season. And hey, if the first or second game, hey, Georgia, first game, you're playing Oregon. And Oregon's turned out to be a pretty good team. You dominated them 49-3. And a lot of people are being critical of Georgia's schedule. Who have they played, really? Well, in the two biggest games of the year, when the bell was rung, they curb stomped Oregon and Tennessee. They took Tennessee, an offense scoring over 50 points a game, held them without a touchdown for the first 55 minutes. And it rained on both teams. They dominated the line of scrimmage in that game. Ole Miss, I don't know where Yancey is. He's in the mountains of North Carolina. I don't know if Bigfoot got him or
He's
what.
boarding up Kiffin's front door so he can't get out.
Yeah. And, and I don't, but I wanted to ask Yancey more about this, but Roman Harper, SEC Network's going to join us in just a few minutes, and we'll get into it. Stay with us. More Sidelines after this quick commercial break.
Hey, y'all. It's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, what we're hearing stories like Lane Kiffin, I've heard he's been formally interviewed by Auburn, formally offered, that I've been hearing he has not been formally offered. Either way, I expect Auburn to make a, quote, as Will Wade said, a strong bass offer here soon to him. And I don't know. Now, it was reported to me by my good friend Smiley over in Atlanta that the reason Lane's plane did not make it to Auburn last night, according to the airplane mechanic at the hangar, Mr. Gordon Liddy, it was something wrong with the 7th Fitzer valve. I don't know. It's all ball bearings these days, gentlemen.
When Knox Kiffin started spraying all that white smoke, I either thought we had a new pope or Lane was leaving at halftime.
Well, we're waiting for the white smoke to come, Jimmy and Frank, from Sanford Hall at Auburn. Have them as coach them. I mean, a lot of Jimmy. Frank and I are both, been eating Cheerios and Lucky Charms all morning, bouncing off the wall. You're more calm. You're like
Second
Bob
cup of
Newhart on the
coffee.
couch over there. Help me, please. Help me.
Well,
I need some sense.
I believe it or not, I talked to the fireman after the game last night. He was leaving Oxford, and he was surprisingly composed and
Yes.
matter of fact about the situation. But and I had a text or two with Yancey, and he was not happy. It's getting to the point that evidently the fan base is getting divided on whether they would be okay if Lane just goes ahead and goes to Auburn, and now you
Lane fatigue.
Fatigue. And then Rob has second thoughts about Auburn taking Kiffin, and then I've heard a couple of people tell me, hey, he might not be at either place. I mean, as unhappy as certain people are, so you can't make this stuff up. And I mean, this is college football. I mean, come on. You got 3.5 minutes left in the game. State has really taken over the game in the fourth quarter. All you got to do, it was like Florida State LSU. You just hand the ball off to your running back on second and third down, hope he scores a touchdown. But if he doesn't, you have an extra point goal to go up 2 scores, and Ole Miss has not moved the ball the entire second half, and then they don't make it, and it's Florida State, LSU all over again. Ole Miss is all of a sudden finds life. And let me say something on that 99-yard drive. That fourth down play, when it was like 4th and 12 in a driving rain, there are not 2 NFL quarterbacks that could have made that throw within like about a 3-inch window. And then the receiver, Hopkins, I think number 11, making that catch. Those were just 2 impossible plays on each end of that completion. Then they go down and score. But like I said to you, Frank, up there when I texted, when Ole Miss scored and they went for the 2-point conversion, they still had all 3 timeouts when they came up to the line of scrimmage. And the receiver they sent in motion to the left side, he was being tracked by a linebacker.
Yeah.
There was no way if they threw to him that they were going to keep from scoring the 2-point conversion. And they call the timeout, and then they call another one after that. It was bizarre.
So they didn't leave. They didn't leave with any points, and they were minus 2 timeouts, which you absolutely needed. Whether you got it or not, you were still going to want to have the opportunity to get the ball back, even if it was a tie game. It made no sense taking 2 timeouts. None.
Yeah, 2 in a row. And I kept thinking, that was Mississippi State, and of course you'd see it was Ole Miss calling the timeouts. And the whole, I mean, you've lost 4 of your last 5 games, and it's kind of like, the relationship you had with the girl, she's wanting to date other people and blah, blah, blah. No, I'm not going to be sitting on the sidelines while you work things out. It's all or none, fill or kill, like a bond deal. Guys, now we're talking, let's switch gears real quick. Roman Harper just texted me. He's going to be on with us in a few minutes. This Texas A&M situation, they came into that's why there shouldn't be rankings until about mid-October. They were the number 6 team in the country, according to a lot of people who just voted because they had a great recruiting class, and they thought, well, it's the 5th year. Look at Nick Saban's 2nd year. Look at Gus Malzahn's 1st year at Auburn. Look at the 2nd year for Josh Heupel. There's no excuse for the dumpster fire that's Texas A&M football. And I love Olin Buchanan, and I love having him on the show, and he switched his schedule. He said it's hard for him to be on in the mornings and the nights or whatever. But bottom line, and he knows that program, as well as anybody. There's something wrong in that locker room. There's a bad chemistry or whatever. But when you've got all these star players that are not performing, nothing's more disgusting to be around than a bunch of talented players who are underachievers.
And that gets laid right at the feet of coaching.
Absolutely, it does.
Is right at Jimbo's feet.
Yeah, it all starts with him, because Ben Franklin said it best. The world is full of brilliant, educated men who are complete failures, because they think that's all it takes. You give me a bunch of C students, man, we'll take over the world. We'll sell bonds. We'll make the economy move. Jimbo has had success. Jameis Winston, he's had success before, but this is year 5. What's going to change next year because these guys are a year older? Does that make them better? No, it doesn't. I'd still, Jimmy thinks there is a lot of money out there. I'll be shocked. But if LSU goes in and puts a beating 42-7 on A&M, that might be too much for them to handle, Jimmy.
I don't know if just a loss in general might be too much to handle, because again, I think if they lose this game, they will have tied the number of losses that a preseason ranked top 5 team has had coming into the first game, which was 8, because Alabama in 2000 was preseason ranked 3rd in Mike Dubos's swan song. And I was at that game at the Rose Bowl when they just fell apart against UCLA, and it just went downhill from there. So when you're 5 years into this and you're one of these powerful A&M boosters, I mean, you got to be saying to yourself, are we just spinning our wheels here? And
you have 6 more losses than your predecessor, who got lampooned for not being a good coach. And insane. Someone looks like the coach of the decade compared to what Jimbo's doing with that same talent, Jimmy.
Well, he had the benefit of the doubt until he went to Arizona. And that did not go well. So, but yeah, I mean, Jimbo.
But you got to give it to Summerlin. He did much better than any other A&M coach, in my opinion, since R.C. Slocum.
Yeah.
Well, he was smart enough to let Johnny Football play, and he knew that he was his best quarterback. I mean, I don't know how you could have gone through a spring practice, which I saw the spring game, and think that Haynes King was going to be a quarterback that was going to take you to a double-digit win season. I mean, just horrible mechanics, just doesn't throw the ball well. And he was throwing pick sixes up to the last game he started. I mean, it was just weird that during his time there, Jimbo's not been able to develop an elite quarterback, even though Mon started over 50 games, but yet he never had any consistency. And the fact that he was cut by the Vikings, before his second season kind of tells you all you need to know. And if you're a quarterback, I could see why you might be wary about going to A&M, because they have not been developing that position.
And let me tell you, if we do beat them, listen to this. We do beat them. What if Arkansas's field goal doesn't hit the top of the upright in some bizarre manner? They go over in the SEC, right? Am I correct? That was the only SEC game they won, right? And it took a bizarre, ridiculous trajectory of a kick that the kid, if you put him out there 100 times, he's going to kick 99 of them in.
Or if Jefferson doesn't try to be Superman and leap from the 4-yard line into the end zone on a quarterback sneak that leads to a 95-yard fumble return for a touchdown.
That's what we hear every day in Arkansas from Arkansas fans is how did we lose to A&M? So what you're saying is the only conference win they have so far is one that Arkansas says may have blown their season up.
Exactly.
And that's that. I mean,
cost them 3 losses.
First off, Ross Bjork should walk the Green Mile with Jimbo Fisher. I mean, I don't see how you think this is going to get any better. That you can hope springs eternal, but you can hope that when you sit in the electric chair, it doesn't hurt. I mean, but it's still gonna. I mean, we know what the result's going to be. I just this going into year 6. Do you think they would put up with this stuff at Alabama, or Georgia, or Auburn?
Campus. They go tap 2 more wells and pay him the almost $90 million and get rid of him. I think they're going to do that. I'm telling you, if we beat the hell out of them, That's going to happen. They're not going to put up with this.
Well, here's the
Their
thing about it.
egos are too big over there.
All right, well, I just look at it, and you have to say if they flush $85 or $90 million down the toilet, that sets a bad precedent. I mean, do you think Michigan State's going to do it with Mel Tucker? I don't know. Hey, Roman Harper, Audrey is coming on with us now, and Roman Harper, we're going to ask Roman. You talk about a truth broker. Somebody, you ask Roman a question, he is going to tell you what he thinks. Roman, first off, happy Thanksgiving. Welcome to Sidelines. Glad to have you on here with us. And I guess you're over back home in Prattville getting ready to go to Tuscaloosa for the Iron Bowl tomorrow. But I loved the other night on the college football playoff rankings came out. Roman had what he called Roman's rankings. So, Roman, welcome to Sidelines, and get your thoughts on college football. I'm sure you watched the Egg Bowl last night. That was a strange game. A lot of strange things happening, but it's college football, and it doesn't get any better.
Well, that's kind of exactly why I ranked it as high as I did, because it's always pretty weird. We just do not know what's going to happen. Last night, it was pouring down raining, and next nobody's going to punt the ball anymore, and we're just going to go. And but that's what this game has been, especially with these two coaches. You just never know what it's going to be. I had a feeling that Mississippi State was going to win the game. I was right, but it was so back and forth. Ole Miss had plenty of chances to win the game and kind of put it away early, and then by the time we got to that late third, fourth quarter, next Mississippi State had kind of got all the momentum. But then for Ole Miss to be able to come and score like right back there at the end, it was a great game. Like, I just love college football so much, and it's really exciting whenever we have a great matchup like that, and we get it every year on Thanksgiving, and it just really doesn't get any better than what the Egg Bowl has to offer for college football.
Yeah, and Roman, I think about that. I'm with you, man. It's college football, and the bowl games, it doesn't matter. And I don't know if you're going to be doing any of the bowl games or not, but that's what I love about you. 11-year NFL career, 9 with Frank's. Who that Saint? Frank's a Saints junkie.
Baby, who that?
So I just think about but you're you and Matt Stinchcomb and Alyssa Lang. I think it was Tuesday night. We were all watching over at the lodge at the Cherry Farm, and I love those power rankings. Now, Jimmy and Frank and I talk a lot about TCU and the Big 12 as well. Give me a scenario. What do you think is going to happen? Who do you think is going to be the 4 teams left after the dust settles next weekend? Your prediction, kind of an early sticking your neck out.
Yeah, it's just so hard to get that right, just because it's college football and we've seen so many things change from week to week. And on Tuesdays we sit up there and we tell everybody, oh, our mindset or who we think is this, and I'm like, I just look over it sometimes. I'm just like, what are we even talking about? Like, none of this even matters. We're just sitting up here prognosticating, any other words you want to use about regurgitating, and it all means nothing. Yeah, all that plagiarizing, and it's all going to be wrong because they're all going to change after the weekend. Like, why do we have to sit up here and talk about this, about what the committee's opinions are about college football? Because it's going to change, and we all know these teams that are here right now are not going to be there. But with all that being said, I think Georgia continues to maintain and hold strong. Georgia's going to be a team that's kind of locked in if they're able to get past Georgia Tech this weekend. But Georgia is not unbeatable. Georgia has some issues on offense, especially being able to finish off drives in the red zone, being able to score, doing things like that. So that matters when you go against really good opponents. You got to be able to finish drives off. And what if somebody's able to make Georgia not play on their terms, where they have to play from behind? And versus a team that's actually good and can beat them. So that is one thing that is a big problem, and they got to try and figure out. But for right now, Georgia's the best of college football has to offer. I think Ohio State will get in. I think they do beat Michigan.
I agree.
Understanding that Michigan, hasn't played anybody, and that is a big rivalry game, and I'm looking forward to that matchup tomorrow. It's going to be a knockout, drag out, just emotions, fans, the players, the teams. Like, that's what you sign up for, to have 2 undefeated teams in Ohio State and Michigan matching up in the biggest game for all of the Big Ten lore is really cool. So I think Ohio State wins that one. I am a little bit concerned in Ryan Day's big game coaching decisions that in the biggest games, he's not made an impact on the game, which I know Jim Harbaugh goes out of his way to try and impact the game in the biggest game. So I'm looking forward to those matchups to see if the players of Ohio State just go out there and win the game, or does Jim Harbaugh put his thumb on the dial and kind of ratchet it up and have an effect on the game to get his team a win on the road would be crazy huge. And then after that, I still have TCU in. I just, for the last month, all the ESPN analysts and all the FPIs and all these other machines that we look at, all these little, and everybody keeps saying TCU is not going to be there. Like, we don't have to worry about them. They're not going to be there in the Final Four because they're going to lose at some point. And I'm like, well, they haven't lost yet. So they're still there and they're not going anywhere. So can we just let them in at this point and just accept it? Like, okay, TCU's in. That's great. And then from there, the last one's going to be, we thought it may be Tennessee. We thought it may be the loser between Ohio State and Michigan. I do not believe that happened.
Roman, can you hold those thoughts? We're going to take a quick break. I want to come back because you're on a roll. My wife is loving when you're talking about Tennessee, the Vols for life. So anyway, we're going to be back with Roman Harper, Jimmy Hodge, Frank Duffy, Rob Browne on Friday's Sidelines.
Hey everyone, my name is David Wisdom.
And I'm Shelby McNeil, and we're attorneys with Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short, your local Auburn law firm. Established in 1959 right in the heart of Auburn, Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short has grown in response to our clients' legal needs. We're a full-service law firm focusing on the legal issues our clients face.
We take pride in providing our clients with exceptional legal services, ongoing communication, and skilled representation. If you have any questions about our services, please give us a call or visit our website today.
All right, Rob Browne back with Jimmy Hodge, Roman Harper, Frank Duffy in the mountains of North Georgia. And Roman, I know at the Georgia game against Tennessee a few weeks ago, Mark Ham was over there. He had 3 briskets. He goes, we got to find Roman. I know it's almost impossible. And you know what it's like when we were with you at the Tennessee-Alabama game back October 15th. You can't even get a phone call out to somebody across the street from you. I couldn't even communicate with Jimmy, who was in Knoxville. But Mark said that he owes you a brisket. He goes, I'm going to give him 2 of our briskets and get them out there for the crew. But it gets kind of crazy on game day, doesn't it, Roman? I mean, it's to the point of you don't even know what every second is scripted almost.
No, man, it's bananas. Well, for us, it is scripted. So we do have to be on a schedule. We do have a time. We have this 2-hour block where you got to try and fit in everything, even all the new breaking news, this, that, and the other, and still be able to entertain a crowd. It is crazy. And with all these people, this influx of fans and students all in one area, the cell phone service usually is trash. So that's just part of the deal. But the funniest thing ever is I was just with my boys last night. We were hanging out, and since everybody's back home for Thanksgiving, and they were just like, it's the best whenever they see something on my show that morning. They text me, and then I like text them back during a commercial break. They're like, this guy's really texting back in the middle of the show. I'm like, yeah, guys, like that's the power of live TV. Like when it's commercial, like we're really on commercial.
Well, I'll tell you, we appreciate it,
but it's info.
Yeah, it is. And I was watching you, about 10 of us watching you the other night. And I said, Roman, first time I saw you, my wife and I were watching when you came on SEC Network. I said, that guy's a truth broker, man. I said, you have a mind. A lot of people will just say something. You think it's like you've written it and you think about it because you've already written it like a great writer. Jimmy and Frank, let's jump in and get some questions. Roman's got a few more minutes before he's got to get to a meeting, but I love this talking college football with you. So, Frank, you go ahead and get started.
Well, I just got to say, I had to run and get my hat. I got to sit here as a 6-year-old in 1967 when the Saints came to New Orleans. I've been a lifelong fan, and I got to tell you, I got to thank you for that Lombardi we got to lift. That was incredible. And, Roman, I don't know if you had the opportunity of riding in Bacchus 7 days later, that next Sunday with Drew when he was the king of Bacchus. I know a lot of the Saints rode with us in that parade. But it was so incredible that Mickey Loomis and Drew, when they came over to the convention center to get dressed for the parade, they brought the Lombardi with them. And when I tell you, they passed that around so that all of us New Orleans fans who were in the Bacchus parade could touch it. It was the most beautiful sight. There had to be about 2,000 fingerprints on that silver trophy. And I'm telling you, you go up to New England, I'll bet you Bob Kraft has never let a New England Patriot fan touch that thing ever. So that was the cool thing about being Saints fans. But I want to thank you personally. My question to you is, when you have the game that's coming up tomorrow, the Iron Bowl, being an Alabama alum, what does that game mean to you, not only as a player, but now as an alum, even now as a fan and somebody that covers it? What are the feelings when you go into that game? Even though you might be a heavy favorite, you know you're going to get a puncher's chance on that other side. What is that game like to somebody that's been in it?
All right, so I just want to follow up that comment when you talk about New Orleans. Number one, I love New Orleans, the city, the people of Louisiana. It just means so much too. From when I got there in 2006 to have my college roommate tell me and laugh at me after I got drafted. He congratulated me, then he laughed because, like, dude, you guys will never make the playoffs. You guys are always terrible, but you'll have fun. And to go from where that was after Katrina to win a Super Bowl 4 years later, it meant so much to so many people in that community, in that city. And that Super Bowl parade was epic. I mean, to see that many people, to have teammates like Trey Turner, an offensive guard, drafted from LSU, played with the Panthers. Like, when he gets in that locker room in Carolina, come up to me and give me the biggest hug. It's like, bro, you have no idea how thankful I am because of that Super Bowl you brought to my city.
Yes.
When I was like 14 years old. He was like, dude, I was out there freezing, and like, it meant the world to many people. And that's just that moment. It was crazy. And so it really is emotional and moving when you get people that are truly, truly just thankful for that one moment, because something happened that people told them for 60 years was never going to happen. Would never happen. So it was really cool to be a part of that. And I'm truly thankful for all my teammates and what we got to accomplish. Now, onto the Iron Bowl. You're right. You do not know what's going to happen. It's one of those rivalry games where when Alabama's highly favored, that's when Alabama should really worry the most, because that's when Auburn does what Auburn does their best. When nobody's watching them, when everybody's just kind of put them to bed, like, oh, Auburn, they're not going to win. They don't have a chance in this one. That's when Auburn kind of does its best work. That's when Auburn has had some of their biggest wins in this Iron Bowl. So they're in a comfortable position because nobody's giving them a chance. That's when that's when they're ready to go. I mean, we don't have anything nobody's worried about us. Like, we don't have to play. We can play as free as we want to.
Yeah.
We can make as many mistakes. Yeah. So because I've seen that game, because I've been a part of that game where, Carnell Williams was hurt, and then a young man by the name of Trey Smith came in and just blew up a game in 2002, 2003. So all those things have happened. I've seen them. I witnessed them. Even last year, Auburn wasn't supposed to be in that game.
Yeah.
And Alabama couldn't do anything. And all of a sudden, they had to go to overtime, which was amazing to watch and be a part of.
Actually win the game.
Yeah. So being a part of all those things is really cool. And for me personally, I'll be there Saturday. I'm going to be excited just because I never got to beat Carnell. So it'll be good to see him go down personally.
Jimmy, jump in here with Roman Harper. Roman, I like the fact, though, that you're friends with Cadillac, and people don't realize how much good work the Auburn and Alabama guys do together for the state of Alabama. You will never see a fight on that field, because you know what? There's respect between those two schools, and that means the world to me, and I bet it does to you as well.
Well, everybody's kind of recruited the same. Look, I wouldn't call myself like a good friend of Cadillac. I respect the hell out of him. He has an amazing career. What he's doing now is absolutely a wonder to watch. Mm-hmm. And it's beautiful to see what young men can do when you love on them, you encourage them, you're trying to give them the right way. And nobody in that building can tell you what it's more like to be in a quote unquote Auburn man than Carnell himself. So, and to go from being on the same all-star team in high school versus the Alabama Mississippi game, that was the first time I got to meet him. To go on and see what he did in his career at Auburn, be the player and the person he was, it means a lot. And now to see him leading young men, commanding a room, speaking the way he speaks, it's just really showing that how much improvement that he's done in himself, his people, his faith, all those things. So I root for anybody like that, but I still want to beat him.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. And you're right. We don't really fight like that, but we do have words to be said, and emotions all go out of all that goes out the door whenever you get in between those white lines. Because just like I want to beat the brakes off my brother, it's just what it is. Like it's just what it is, and that rivalry means so much because the state of Alabama, somebody has bragging rights for 364 days after that day.
That's right. Jimmy, jump in here because Jimmy's an Alabama guy. I still love him, but he's an Alabama guy tomorrow.
Well, Roman, I was at the Iron Bowl last year, and I knew right at the beginning of the game when Bama sacked Finley on the 3-yard line, and they get the short punt at maybe Auburn's 40-45, and they do absolutely nothing offensively. I knew right then, I don't like the way this is going. And it was just like Bama was flat the whole game until near the end of the third quarter. They started to move the ball, and, they botched the snap on the field goal, and they basically had to just keep plugging away. Found a way to win it, but leaving that Iron Bowl, I don't think there was a person at Jordan-Hare that thought Alabama could even be on the same field with Georgia. And I thought that it was like Bama had an 800-pound gorilla lifted off their shoulders, that they could come into that game really playing with house money. They put together a brilliant offensive game plan with the short throws that, got the offense going. And then after a few of those short throws, Georgia kind of got into the mindset, well, that's what they're going to be doing all day. We're not going to be able to get to Bryce. And then they started throwing deep and then just shredded them. And when you compare that to how South Carolina played in Gainesville 2 weeks ago, and then 7 days later, what they do to Tennessee, it just tells you how crazy and unpredictable college football is. And then one other thing I wanted to ask you, that 2002 game, Iron Bowl, I was at that game. Bama just looked like they were in a slumber for the first, quarter and a half when they got down 17-0. Did you guys have any inkling that Fran was going to be leaving, and what was the team's preparation like in your mind leading up to that game?
I don't think we had an idea that Fran was leaving. I think I knew that he hadn't signed his extension by that point. So that was a little bit worrisome, but nobody thought he was going to leave. In our mind, A&M was not a better job. So I think, and we were winning. It like Alabama had really, we started to like, okay, Fran's going to be here a while. And I wasn't always the biggest Fran fan just because, he literally had his name on every T-shirt. It kind of got annoying. But other than that,
I bet.
But other than that, it was great times. And we were winning games. So that's all anybody cares about. But the biggest deal, especially about last week versus South Carolina. Thank you. No, I'm good. Thank you, Yvette. Sorry, I got self-serve breakfast from my aunt. She's awesome. And
I love that.
Go home, isn't it? It's good.
It's good to be home. So, but the thing about South Carolina was like they jumped out on them. Tennessee could not get it going, and their defense of Tennessee was so lackluster. South Carolina didn't do anything like fancy. They didn't do anything technically that was great or reinventing. They were just executed, and Spencer Rattler was on one. And but that's all it takes. That's literally all it takes. And when you still had your chance, when you got it down to one touchdown, they still didn't get that stop. They never got the stop they needed. And then when Hendon Hooker got hurt, the wheels really just fell off.
Yeah. Roman, on that set, you and there's the folks on the SEC network, Takeo Spikes, Chris Doring, Ben Watson, Matt Stinchcomb, Dari, Noka, Peter Burns. It's so, there's so much positive energy is what I love about it. And y'all, but talk, great chemistry. And the preparation that you put in for we got about 5 minutes before you got to go. The preparation, talk about that, because even if you're on the air for a 30-minute show or a 1 hour show, there's got to be a lot of legwork to get there.
Well, yeah, it takes so many people behind the scenes to make our shows look good. And their biggest deal is that they just want to make us look good. So they're going to give us all the information we can. And the prep is real. I study so much film. I watch a lot of games every day. I was at my parents' alma mater game yesterday, the Turkey Day Classic with Alabama State. And I'm in the middle of their game watching another game. So on my phone, just to be able to keep up with film. So I got my talking points. And for me personally, I don't feel comfortable about talking about football unless I've seen it. So I don't want to sit up here and just like, look at some stats and some numbers and then say, this is what my opinion is about that team, when stats and numbers don't truly always tell the whole truth. So, and because my eyes don't lie to me when I watch ball, that's what I like to use. And I call those the RPI, the Roman Power Index. So that's what I judge teams off of.
I love that. Looking at another one, A&M. What do you think's going to happen if LSU goes in and gets a big touchdown win over A&M? Are they crazy enough at A&M to let $85 million walk out the door and say goodbye to Jimbo? Because this is 5 years in. Do you think they would ever let a guy hang around doing that at Auburn or Alabama or LSU that long without better results?
Well, with that contract, maybe. It just makes you think about everything. It's like, And no matter, I mean, it's just really hard to deny when, all these coaches that got all these huge, huge deals, it hasn't worked out. Like it hasn't worked. And so it's something to be said about coaches that still go out there and earn it on a day-to-day basis. And I'm not saying Jimbo doesn't earn it. They gave him the money, so he earns it. So however he earns it, but it does give him leverage. I'm anxious to see, does he bite the bullet and say, okay, I'm going to bring in an offensive coordinator?
Yeah.
Because if they did that, then it would make a lot of people happy. And that's all they really care about, because everything else that he's done is good. He's gotten better players. They are relevant. Yeah, he's a great recruiter. He's done all those good things. So they love all of that. But let's be honest with ourselves, too. Texas A&M's never been a winning program. Like, never. They've always been a 7-8 win program. They've won 10 games like 3 times, twice maybe, since 1990s. Yeah. And that was under Johnny Manziel, and then 2 or 3 years ago. That's it. So Texas A&M is still kind of who they are, and it's really hard sometimes to, you work so hard to catch up, but it's so hard to get past that next stage of like, not only did I catch up, but now I passed at one point.
Yeah. Roman, look, I know we promised we'd let you off. You got to get somewhere. Let people know how they can follow you. We really appreciate you taking time. You're at home with your family, but it means a lot to us, and look forward to the next visit. And give us a retweet if you can anytime. We appreciate it, but let people know how they can follow you, because you are the tip of the spear with this college football and more.
Thanks, Rob. I really appreciate those words. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm Hart41. Hart41. I hardly ever tweet, but I do sometimes. And then on Instagram, I'm probably a little bit more active, but I don't really do that much either. So it's Harp_41. But I'm fun. I like to show a lot of my family and little bits of my life. So it's cool.
Hey, look, man, that's what we love about you. You are the truth broker, the head justice on the SEC network. And have a great weekend. Be careful in Tuscaloosa. I'm going to be pulling for Auburn. You're pulling for Alabama, but we'll talk about it soon, okay?
Yeah, man, that's the state of Alabama in a nutshell. You got to pick one, so it's all good. Thank you. You guys have a good one. Have a good one.
Who dat, Roman? Who dat?
All right, Roman.
Who dat,
Thanks
baby?
for being on.
Thank you so much. We're going to do this. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to come back. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to head out to Austin, Texas, right next to DKR Memorial Stadium, and talk to wild man Ken Capps. And now, look, he's a horn. His wife is a frog. But he's a longhorn and she's a horned frog. Right after this.
Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back with Frank Duffy and Jimmy Hodge. Here comes Jimmy. I tell you, that's fun with Roman Harper, man. Roman,
That made my year.
Hey, he's not kidding. Tuesday night, we're over at the Cherry Farm, down in the newest renovation, the basement, another 1,000 square feet of fun and pleasure, watching on the big screen. And I literally texted him during that show, and he fired right back. He said, "Yeah, I can do it." He goes, "I won't be going home to see my family," because he's from Prattville, and Prattville is, you get off right there at the Prattville exit there off Interstate 65, and pop right over about an hour and a half to Tuscaloosa. I've done Highway 82 several times. It's a good and a bad deal. Half that thing is beautiful 4-lane as you get close to Tuscaloosa. As you get close to the Prattville exit, right above Montgomery, it's 2-lane, and you better drink some coffee, Chris Farley style, to keep yourself awake. But
hey, Rob, I got to tell you, he was so integral in our Saints defense in 2009. Because don't forget, we were the takeaway kings. That's why we got into that Super Bowl. We had so many takeaways, and Roman Harper was back there patrolling that at safety. And I mean, he could hit guys. He would come up. He would stick them at the line of scrimmage. He was great in the running game. I mean, he was that that double cover on deep routes, and he could get back there. I'm telling you, and we didn't mention how integral he was as a rookie when he mentioned in 2006 when he came in. We almost beat the Chicago Bears. We had a shot of going to the first Super Bowl in 2006. Sean Payton and Drew Brees and Roman's first year. So he will never pay for another drink in the city of New Orleans. And Roman, if you're still out there listening, brother, the bowl of gumbo at Galatoire's is on me anytime you want to go into town, man.
Yeah, and he loves the Saints. You can and that's what's really cool, and what I hope is we're able to keep him at SEC Network, because Booger McFarland, Anthony's his real name, and golly, you think about it, Marcus Spears from Baton Rouge, they've both been gobbled up by the NFL, and that's man, but God, he gets the college game. He and Takeo Spikes, Chris Doring, Ben Watson, Matt Stinchcomb.
It's a just perfect fun group. It really is a perfect group. That's why I said their chemistry is exceptional on there.
Yeah, they really are.
And they call each other out. If somebody's making a comment that's kind of out on a limb, Roman will call them out. I love it.
Yeah. Well, Roman, the RPI, Roman's Power Index. Jimmy, we're going to have to, I'm going to have to come up with something about the Jimmy's Index, whatever. But Jimmy, what he was talking about, that 2002 Iron Bowl, that was the game. I remember Alabama had gone on the road right before that game and beat LSU 31-0.
Beat the hell out
down in Baton Rouge. And everybody had already picked out the flowers, the pine box, and the burial suit for Auburn. Cadillac broke his tibia in the Florida game. Ronnie Browne came in, had 167 yards rushing in that game. Auburn lost. Good God, at the end there on that field goal. I still can't get over that, but they missed a 23-yarder, Damon Duvall out of Chattanooga Red Banks. But I go back to nobody gave Auburn a chance in that game. Robert Johnson, the big tight end out of Montgomery Lee, had a touchdown catch. And you had Trey Smith out of Venice, Florida, as a running back in that game. Ronnie Browne was hurt from the Georgia game that they had lost when Michael Johnson caught that pass in the corner. Horace Willis, the defensive back for Auburn, I remember from Milledgeville, Georgia, where the State Nervous Hospital is, Frank. That's where that is. Actually, it's the State Nervous Hospital. He jumped up but couldn't out-jump Michael Johnson. But, Jimmy, nobody thought Auburn had a chance. And that was a good question. That was a cool answer from Roman, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Didn't really know.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the first time I ever saw Michael Johnson was when he was a freshman wide receiver at Union High School in Tulsa. And let me tell you, he was just as big as a freshman in high school as he was as a college player. They had Power 5 schools all over the country going after him from that literally that time on. And he was kind of a late bloomer in college. But yeah, that catch against Auburn late in the game on that cold, dreary night is still remembered by Georgia fans. But yeah, I was really curious because again, very seldom did you see Alabama come out flat, in the Iron Bowl, and that was one of those instances. And you just had to think something, was up. Yeah. But yeah, again, this year in college football, though, has just put an exclamation point on you just never know what's going on from week to week. I mean, Illinois had just been on a really bad 3-week stretch. They outplayed Michigan at the big house every way you could beat them. And that horrendous no call on that blatant pick, which allowed that Michigan. I mean, that guy took out 2 defenders, and the game's over if they call that, because that was 4th down. That would have been lost down, offensive, positive. He did have a right to go crazy. Yeah. But you had no reason to think that was coming, that Illinois would play at that level. So, but coming into this Michigan, Ohio State, though, I don't think anybody knows Blake Corum's physical condition, and if he's not at 100%, their running game is going to take a big hit, and it's going to be really tough for them to try to get it done tomorrow.
Fellas, look who it is. It's Carl Childers from Darrell K. Royal Memorial Stadium. I had kind of wanting something other good to eat in there. Ken, you have the best job. Frank is perhaps the world's most interesting man. Because one minute he's in Atlanta, then he's in North Georgia, then he's in Cancun, and he's playing at the craps table in Monte Carlo. But you are at places like Cisco's. I was so hungry watching you eat. And Jimmy and I and Frank are going to join you at Cisco's when we're down there in Austin for SEC games coming forward. But happy Thanksgiving. Happy day after Thanksgiving. And it is a great time to be talking college football. We had Roman Harper from SEC Network on before us. Yancey Porter was supposed to join us from the mountains of Western North Carolina, host of the Rebel Yell Hotline. He went up there to just get away from football for a few days. I hope Yancey is okay. I know he was pretty down about that Egg Bowl, but
I hope they took his shoestrings away from him last night when he left Hemingway.
Yeah, but Ken, college football, man, you're down there right by DKR Memorial Stadium, deep in the heart of Texas. Let's talk some college football. We are all ears.
Well, I'm sitting right across the street in a dry place here in Austin. It's a 90% chance of rain for the game today. So it's going to be some interesting circumstances over there, but when it rains, that always means that favors the run game. And Texas has number 5, Bijan Robinson, who I think is, going to show up on a lot of All-American teams here in the next couple of weeks. And so I think it's going to be very interesting. I know Baylor's not going to lay down. Baylor's tough, but Texas is playing for a lot today because believe it or not, if Texas wins this game and Kansas can beat Kansas State tomorrow in the Sunflower Showdown, that's what they call it up there. Texas will go to the Big 12 championship game and play TCU again.
Yeah, my buddy's a producer for Tim Brando and Spencer Tillman's Fox team, and they're bringing that Fox team up to the Little Apple.
Hey, do you notice the hat that Frank's wearing, Ken?
I did notice that.
In honor of
we'll see. I've got one too.
I need that. I need the ears
covered. When I do shows and different things as a member of Football Writers, I always say that I'm Switzerland. Okay, so you never see any colors on me or anything. But yeah, it's going to be interesting tonight or today. And that's why I couldn't go to Cisco's today, guys, because Cisco's is too far from the stadium, and the game's at 11. So I had to find a place that was very close to the stadium, so me and my daughter can just walk across the street and go to the game after this.
Well, I mean, that Darrell K. Royal Memorial Stadium it's an awesome site, and I think what's cool is, we're getting ahead of A&M or Texas and OU coming into the SEC, and I'm glad meeting you at SEC Media Days. You're a Football Writers Association of America writer, but damn right. I'm a Texas grad. My wife is a TCU Horned Frog. I love it because Oklahoma and Texas coming into the SEC, it is, and the Arkansas people are just giddy about getting to play Texas more often and Oklahoma.
Southwest Conference again.
Yeah, this is it's a great thing that's happening. And Jimmy, I know you talk a lot about the Big 12. I do. Frank does. But Ken, the Big 12 really well. Mm-hmm. I think it is, in my opinion, top to bottom. How can you say it's not the second best conference in America behind the SEC? And I know that the SEC and the Big 12 have several good matchups, but I don't discount Baylor for one. You're right for 1 second. But Jimmy, jump in here because I love hearing talk about SEC, Big 12, ACC, and all these schools. Lot to fight for.
Well, Ken, I find it kind of amusing that, you talk about the Ohio State Michigan game, and the loser of that game, in my mind, I just don't see how they're in the playoff because strength of schedule, they're just going to get annihilated.
Yep,
I mean, Ohio State's strength of schedule, the last I saw was like 66th. And Michigan was lower than that. Mm-hmm. And I just don't understand that when you look at Ohio State, they play one ranked team up to this point, and that was Penn State. And that was a Penn State team with an offense that I thought made Ohio State's supposedly drastically improved defense look extremely ordinary for pretty much most of the game. And yet, there's just never any mention of that. But and Michigan had the likes of Hawaii come into town 7 days after giving up a 6-burger to Vandy at home in the season opener, and yet you don't hear anything about that. But you hear people talking about TCU's schedule, and I think they've beaten maybe 5 ranked opponents. I mean, what is it about this perception and this seemingly endless love affair with the Big Ten, a conference that's won 2.5 national championships in the last 50 years?
Well, I think it's just, tradition more than anything. People love the Michigan-Ohio State game. I mean, I do. It's going to be in the shoe tomorrow, which will be fun. I think it's a lot of tradition. A lot of people, same thing with the University of Texas. A lot of people, let's say, always get miffed at the beginning of the season in the preseason rankings when Texas is always in the top 25 preseason rankings, whether they have a good team or not. And it comes down to now, you can't take anything away from Ohio State or Michigan. Whether they have a good strength of schedule or a bad one, They've played who was on their schedule, and they've won all their games. But tomorrow it's going to be for all the cheeseburgers, and we'll see who comes out undefeated. But then, and this is what you're talking about, Jimmy, when the CFP and our old buddy Bill Hancock and his crew sits down, that's where that weakness of schedule is going to cost them. That's where it's going to cost them.
Yes, it is.
Well,
Yeah.
Ken, Jimmy, no, I'm just saying that I agree with you. I like the Big Ten, Michigan, Ohio State game, but Jimmy is right. Last 50 years, 2.5 national titles versus 19 from the SEC. It's frustrating that Michigan and Ohio State are both in the top 4, and there's no question about them. And everybody's just looking for ways to push TCU aside. They're a damn good football team.
They are. And I mean, what really blows my mind, let's go back to last week in Waco. I mean, here they are. Here TCU. I mean, Baylor has TCU on the ropes the entire game, and then TCU comes back, and I mean, with no timeouts, they run onto the field with 11 seconds left, run onto the field and kick a field goal and win it. I just cannot believe that their field goal kicker had enough, just calm and ice in his veins to just, the whole team, the snapper, the holder, and the kicker, just so rushed because they couldn't stop the clock, and they just, boom, kicked it in, win the game. I mean, that was a real heartbreaker for Baylor. So that's kind of the other thing I'm looking for today, to see if that was kind of the gut punch that, Baylor's just like, well, okay, or they're going to come out just mad as hell and want to beat their rival Texas Longhorns again.
But Jeff Grimes, the offensive coordinator for Baylor, wishes he had that over to do over again. That was way too conservative. He channeled his inner Les Miles, and I will tell you, that was not good play calling. Though I will say, if he dumps the ball to that tight end, he can fall backwards for a first down.
Right.
But you got to feel for Baylor. Baylor outplayed them. They really did. TCU was fortunate to get out of that game, but you need one of those in a championship type run. My LSU Tigers had that against Auburn. When we beat them in Tiger Stadium in 2019, you need one of those close games that you barely escape. I think TCU's in. I think there's no way they can keep them out. I think Ohio State, Michigan loser is going to fall back.
Right.
And it's just a matter of, does LSU beat Georgia to get in, or do we have USC hovering around and they make it in? But I think the Michigan Ohio State loser is back in the pack.
Absolutely. Well, but here's what I've always said, and just not about TCU, but there's a team every year that is kind of like the Cinderella story, like TCU. And you know what? Good teams find a way to win. Good teams find a way to win. So, and again, I've got my wife of 30 years reminding me about TCU every week now, and she's going while me and my daughter are down there. She's going down here in Austin. She's going over to Fort Worth tomorrow to see the Iowa State game, which I don't think is going to be much of a game. But after I heard a bunch of Baylor people,
hey Ken, hold these thoughts. We got to take a quick commercial break because I want to get into that because that Matt Campbell and Iowa State matchup at TCU, that's an interesting game. We're going to talk about it after this quick commercial break.
Hey everyone, my name is David Wisdom.
And I'm Shelby McNeil, and we're attorneys with Hagen, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short, your local Auburn law firm. Established in 1959 right in the heart of Auburn, Hagen, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short has grown in response to our clients' legal needs. We're a full-service law firm focusing on the legal issues our clients face.
We take pride in providing our clients with exceptional legal services, ongoing communication, and skilled representation. If you have any questions about our services, please give us a call or visit our website today.
All right, got a great idea Frank is the missing man formation right now. He'll be back with us. But hey, if you're looking for something cool, it is, Black Friday. People are thinking about Christmas right now, Christmas shopping. You need to go to Sewanee1899unrivaled.org. Order you that DVD. Norman Jetmanson and David Cruz spent 6 years on this documentary. Ken, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but need to get you a copy of it. It was about Sewanee's 1899 team that had the 5 wins in 6 days at Texas A&M, at Tulane, at LSU, and then at Ole Miss. They played it in Memphis, and 5 wins in 6 days, went 12-0 that season, scored 327 points. The closest game was in Montgomery. Sounds like a current event, and the lights, they didn't have lights at the field. And John Heisman was the coach at Auburn, and Auburn played them to an 11. Let's say this: Sewanee won 11-10, but after the game, there were pistols drawn, fights and duels, and it was pretty bad. Auburn, Sewanee, and Auburn people
like
are
a
still
Saturday night at the War Eagle Supper Club.
Yeah. Auburn people still have the red ass about it. 128 years later, or whatever it is. But you need to get that. It's a great documentary. It is done brilliantly. The music is scored by the same guy that did all the stuff for Ken Burns stuff, the documentaries. It is absolute beautiful. The narration is by an Episcopal priest from there in Birmingham. And it just will renew your faith in college football and why we love this game so much. And then we have the great writers, like Ken, who bring it to life and make it real. Ken, we had to take a break. You were on a roll, but getting in, we got TCU at home at Amon G. Carter in Fort Worth against Iowa State. These are big games. If you hadn't been to Texas, you don't even have you have no clue how big high school, college, and pro football are. So keep going. Sorry for the interruption, but I wanted to get that in about the Sewanee documentary because it's a great Christmas gift it's a gift for all seasons.
Well, Rob, I'm going to put that on my Christmas list for Santa, and hopefully he'll put it in my stocking for me.
That's right.
Well,
Listening to all that TCU stuff, you've gotten all your good list on.
Oh, trust me, I'm going to be heading over to the TCU bookstore here in the next couple of weeks and buying it out. But we're right in the middle of high school playoffs right now in Texas, and in about 2 weeks they're going to play every single solitary championship game in Jerry World. Yep. So from 1A, 6-man, all the way to 6A.
What a great tradition.
Isn't that great?
I love it.
You can just go there and watch. And people do. People come in from around the country to sit there and watch every single high school championship game. But anyway, back to TCU and Iowa State. You would think that Iowa State wouldn't have much of a chance in this game at all. And I doubt they do. But, you just never know what's going to happen. And, I just don't know what's happened to Matt Campbell either because, the last 2 or 3 years, Matt Campbell has kind of been the golden boy and has been rumored for, the Jets job, all other kind of big jobs here in college football. He kept beating Oklahoma, which really made Oklahoma mad. And, they've been a really great school. So I don't know why they've fallen off so badly. And I just wonder what's next for Matt Campbell.
Yeah, I was thinking the very same thing, Ken, because, his name had been mentioned prominently early in the Nebraska coaching search after Frost was let go. And then also possibly Wisconsin, because he played at Mount Union and he's part of that really strong tradition of Ohio coaches. Has he missed his window here, do you think? And a name I wanted to throw in there and see if you thought it was a possibility would be Matt Rule for either one of those jobs and possibly Bill O'Brien, because I think most people don't realize that without the miraculous job that Bill O'Brien did at Penn State during his 2 years there after the Paterno fiasco, Penn State would be nowhere close to where they are right now.
You're 100% right. And of course, Alabama fans are all over Bill O'Brien now. And, it's kind of like Sark. after Sark left Alabama and came to Texas. I don't think that. I mean, Matt Rule did not forget how to coach this year. Okay, he didn't forget how to coach, but he's always taken average players and made them 4-star players. So I don't know what's happened to them this year. I'm sure he can get another job somewhere, but I don't think he's the hot commodity he was at the beginning of the season. Now, Matt Rule, I think Matt Rule can go where he wants to go still. And boy, when he was at Baylor, that was right after Art Briles, if you remember.
Yeah.
Talking about a disaster there.
Yeah.
And Matt Rule came in and just turned that place around and made it one of the cleanest, most honest programs in America. And, but isn't it funny that it's so hard for most people, for most college coaches, there are a few exceptions, but it's really tough for college coaches to go to the NFL, and I always say it's one thing to motivate. It's one thing to motivate college kids that want to play for your school. It's a whole nother thing to try to motivate 52 millionaires.
Yeah. Saban and Spurrier are the perfect examples of that.
Well, and you think about this.
No,
Jimmy, go ahead.
It's a little known fact that Matt Rule turned down the Oregon job to go to Baylor, and people don't realize that. And to think about what Baylor, Oregon might have been had Rule taken that job, because he'd perform miracles at Temple, and then to dive into a situation he knew was going to take 4 or 5 years to really even make any kind of noticeable progress just tells you, I think, what kind of coach he is.
Well, when Matt Rule got to Baylor and he came to Big 12 Media Days that first time, he was definitely seen as the Yankee coach outsider. And man, he came in and just charmed everybody. And everybody loved him, and he was funny and accessible. And then he went out and won and did a great job. So, he's going to wind up somewhere in college in January, I'm sure.
Well, you look at now the other. You talk about Matt Campbell. Jimmy said as he missed his window. Think about Gary Barnett staying around Northwestern too long. Coaches do that. And now you ought to see some of the stuff coming across my phone right now about Lane Kiffin from some of these Ole Miss sites that, everybody's, up in arms about a guy who's lost 4 of his last 5 games. He's the guy. This is what this guy's claiming. He's been out interviewing for the last 2 weeks, during game week, distracting from his team, and then you got Auburn people after looking at that. I'm one of them sitting there going, do you want to buy a car with 4 bald tires? And
Jerry DiNardo.
Yeah. But Jerry DiNardo, after Tennessee had beaten them 65-0 up in Nashville, Vanderbilt got destroyed, and they announced, hey man, we're dropping the Hindenburg off at, Baton Rouge. And the magic is back.
Cost me 5 good years and wasted a lot of talent. Kevin.
Yeah, and he did. But Ken, God, Matt Campbell was a hot commodity. I think you got to go. I think you've got to go when you're that hot. That's if we've seen it over and over and over. But you look at Gary Patterson. He stayed around TCU forever, and then he goes to Texas now, and he's defensive coordinator or advisor to the coach or whatever you want to call him. But Ken, let's switch gears. I want to go kind of look at the Big Ten. You referenced it a minute ago, Michigan and Ohio State. I think it's because I use this comparison. There's so many people, grumpy old guys in a flannel shirt, look what I'm wearing.
But I'm looking at one.
Archie Bunker sitting in his cloth chair, drinking a Croissant beer with his white socks on, watching that Big Ten football. They were born and bred on it because, as Jimmy always says, 70% of the TV sets in America are within the geographical footprint of the Big Ten. But
you betcha.
Yeah, you betcha. Yeah, darn tootin'. Sure. Oh, yeah. But that's all it is. And we're going to be ridded of one of those two, Ohio State and Michigan, after their game tomorrow. But look at the fight that you have in the SEC and the Big 12 as well. ACC, not so much, but Florida State looks like they're making a move. But kind of break down that Big 10 that I'm talking about. You are in tune on the national level, and then we're going to get into the ACC and how they can fix themselves. But Big 10 first.
And the other thing I want to talk to Frank about too, before I get out of here, is this is 11 years since Texas and Texas A&M ended their rivalry on the Friday after Thanksgiving, and I've got some interesting stats on that I want to share with you.
You had some yes,
but because they thought they were going to start a rivalry with LSU, and it hasn't worked out so well for them. But we'll get to that in a minute. But I just wanted to say something about Gary Barnett, because Northwestern is my other alma mater. And, Gary Barnett was up for the Notre Dame job. He was up for the Notre Dame job, and he didn't take it. And then look what happened. But yeah, the Big Ten, look, you didn't have Wisconsin doing anything this year. They fired their coach.
Yeah.
Nebraska has never worked out in the Big Ten at all, which I was really surprised at. And, my Northwestern Wildcats have just fallen off the charts this year. And I was reading the daily, believe it or not, I was reading the Daily Northwestern last night, which is a great student newspaper. And there's a little heat on Fitz, which that's hard. You never hear any heat on Fitz because I just can't imagine him being anywhere else. But, when you've only won one game all year, and you're playing for the Lincoln Trophy tomorrow against Illinois, who would have ever thought Illinois would be this dang good? Wow. And playing in Evanston tomorrow, and they just might clobber Northwestern. So if you look at it this year in the Big Ten, there's only two schools around, and that's Michigan and Ohio State that are even close.
The way it used to be.
And yet a one-win Northwestern team gave Ohio State all they wanted 3 weeks ago.
And I think part of that was too, I think that was just an off game for Ohio State. But you're right. I was very proud of the Cats that day. But they just don't have the firepower. But again, that goes back to what I just said a few minutes ago. Good teams find a way to win. The Buckeyes, they kind of fuddled around for 2 or 3 quarters, but then they punched in those 2 touchdowns and won.
Well, that's something Roman Harper said on the previous segment about Ryan Day doesn't really make an impact in these big national games. And that's the frustrating part about it. And Ken, you'll see the minders on every TV set on the college football shows, ESPN, Fox, ABC, whatever, CBS, and you'll have somebody from Ohio State there to make sure that Ohio State narrative is inserted in the conversation.
Oh, yeah.
And by God, I'm tired of it. We know what I say to him. Frank and Jimmy will back me on this one. Get off of my lawn. Some guy.
If Kirk Herbstreit's around, you're going to hear about it. And of course, game day is going to be there tomorrow.
Oh yeah. You could have. Listen, Reese Davis and all those guys will get on there, and Reese is an Alabama guy, but they'll sing the praises of the Big Ten. And you ever look at the cops on the sidelines at Notre Dame games? They look like the police uniforms they wore on the Little Rascals. It's like they're 67 years, 70 years out of date. But I will say this. Bo Schembechler, Woody Hayes, we all grew up. I love that. Those are alpha males. I don't have time for betas, okay? We don't need any more betas. We need alpha males. But I just think the Big Ten, it'll take care of itself. But you're right. Wisconsin in the 90s when Barry Alvarez came there built something. And they are, look, if you look in this millennium, Wisconsin's probably in the top 7 or 10 winningest programs in college football. And you can say, well, they don't play anybody. Well, ask all these SEC teams that have played Wisconsin. They play good.
And I'll tell you this, nothing washes the stink of Big Ten offenses off of you like Joe Brady.
Yeah.
2019 offense. That eliminates that Big Ten plodding 3 yards in a cloud of dust in one season.
Yeah, Joe Burrow comes down. Yeah. So now, Ken, we got a commercial in a couple of minutes, but the ACC, What about it down there? Dabo and Clemson, Florida State likely is going to finish 9-3 this year, maybe 10 with a bowl win. You see that conference? How are they going to fix themselves?
Boy, well, they've got three great teams. I mean, even with the loss, I mean, North Carolina. I mean, boy, everybody roots for North Carolina around here because of Mac Brown.
Yeah,
and boy, he's really revived himself and North Carolina, and then you've still got Clemson, and you're right. Then you've got Florida State. So I just think until they get a better TV deal, they're just gonna. That's what it's all going to boil down to for them. They've just got to get a better TV deal before they're going to get more visibility. Because I would love to see more North Carolina games. I mean, we see Clemson games every once in a while. When they were in the top four, we saw them a few times because they were in the top four and it was a national game. But I've never. I guess I have to have the ACC network to watch them. But
hell, you can't get the ACC network here in Atlanta. It's hard to get. I mean,
but I'll tell you what, boy. I'll tell you what, boys. I do have the Big Ten network, so I can watch my Wildcats.
It doesn't matter where you go. I mean, especially you go down into Florida, like on the coast, like Naples and Sarasota and Bradenton. It's Big Ten country down there. There's so many people.
Oh, transplants
that move down there and drink their Croix beer and eat their brats and
their ham.
Cheese. I just the Big Ten. If the way to settle this, Ken, let's propose a regular season home and home. And I mean, I'm talking Michigan go to the Swamp in September.
Sure.
Auburn go to the Shoe in November. Alabama go to Penn State, which they've done a lot in November. That would be more because the bowl games, Ken, I don't think they tell us too much. I mean, they're fun, but like we got the stopwatch. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. Jimmy Hodge, Rob Browne, Frank Duffy, Ken Capps on this day after Thanksgiving, going into week 13 of college football. Twist our arms. We'll talk college football right after this.
Hey, y'all. It's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection. And they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, we are back, man, on the Hollywood Squares version of Sidelines. I love it, man. Sometimes we have 5 or 6 squares up there, but we don't smoke marijuana in Muskogee. Place. Hey, this is the new. Hey, Ken Capps. This is our new slogan for Sidelines. Jimmy and Frank, tell me what you think. Sidelines, a place where even squares can have a ball.
Wow. Did you think that up all by yourself? Did you think that up all by yourself, Rob?
Some guy, Merle Haggard, came up with that.
I like that.
Whoever wrote that, but that was a great song. He goes, the kids here still respect the college dean. Yeah, right. Mr. Blutarski.
Hey, but Rob, can I make a suggestion?
Yes, please go ahead.
Can we do one of your shows with Ainsley at the boot store at Hewlett & Dunn? I'd really like to meet her.
Yeah, Ainsley is she goes to Auburn. She's an Auburn student, and mom and dad went to Auburn. Great. I tell you what, Hewlett and Dunn, we were in there Tuesday of this week, and good Lord, man, if you're looking for stuff for Christmas presents, check them out. HewlettandDunn.com.
I need new boots. I need to go stop
over
by.
7,000 pairs of boots in there, and they've got great prices. But you can order HewlettandDunn.com. Go on there, ask for Charles Hall, ask for Big Sam, or ask for Raven Carpenter. Any of them in there will be able to help you in the ship stuff. But that's a store, Ken, that you would see John Wayne, Clint Eastwood, Elvis shopping in there. They got those rock mount shirts that Bob Dylan and Elvis always wore on stage. In fact, I had one on last night. It's got the skull and crossbones and the American flag on there. By God, it was badass last night at the Thanksgiving dinner wearing that thing. But anyway,
Rob, let's talk about that Texas A&M
Yeah.
Texas rivalry.
Yeah.
That again, Texas A&M thought they escaped. Well, guess what? You're back to the future again. It's getting ready to come back, and you're exactly right, Ken. We beat the hell out of Texas A&M. LSU has beat them. I think we've only lost to them twice since they've come into the conference. So that's really their rivalry. Even though LSU Texas A&M was a big rivalry in the 50s and 60s, and we revisited it in 1986, the Harvey Williams recruiting battle bowl in Tiger Stadium, which I was there, and my good buddy Dan Bornay was his first game announcing at Tiger Stadium. But let's speak to having to go back to that rivalry, which I know Texas A&M, those Aggies are not happy with this.
No way at all. And I did a little research on this because, Frank, you and Jimmy have been down here. I mean, and I was watching the Egg Bowl last night. I mean, it really brought me back because I can't tell you how many Texas A&M games that I've been to here in Austin. In my time on planet Earth, as well as me and my buddies have gone up to College Station, and either on Thanksgiving night or like right now, is when that game should be played. But A&M thought, and again, I try to come at it with an objective attitude, even though I'm a Texas guy. But A&M thought that that they were going to get out from under the thumb of Big Brother, the University of Texas, and they really didn't like the Longhorn Network. And I didn't think any. Right.
Jealous.
And they were jealous, and so but they really wanted to give one of these to Texas. And so that last game in 2011, was played in College Station, and the memory that is still burned in every Aggie memory is, I remember who the quarterbacks were. The quarterbacks were Chase McCoy, which is Colt's little brother, and Ryan Tannehill. The coach at A&M was Mike Sherman, who was summarily replaced with Kevin Sumlin the next year.
Yep.
So it's taken us back a lot of years. But anyway, what every Aggie remembers is Justin Tucker, who's going to be an NFL Hall of Famer. He's with Baltimore, kicking a 40-yard walk-off field goal in College Station to beat A&M 27-25, and that's the last time. It's 11 years ago today in 2011, and so I looked it up. And you're exactly right, Frank. In the 10 years since, LSU has beaten A&M 8 out of 10 times.
Yep.
Okay, so it's not much of a rivalry. But I looked at it on the other side too, because I'm an objective reporter. Texas has tried to fill today's spot with all kinds of hodgepodge teams, and they played Tech, TCU, today Baylor. Texas is only 4-6 in the last 10 years on today. So it hasn't really worked out well for either one of them. But I really hope that when they finally put out the real schedules, not all these bogus schedules that have come out the last few weeks, I really hope that the commissioner, Greg Sankey, will really will make that A&M Texas game a tradition again.
There's four things you can count on: death, taxes, Alabama will play Auburn, and Texas will play Texas A&M going forward. Count on.
Yeah, and they should. And you think now, Ken, can you confirm? I remember Texas had 3 players on the team. Maybe my brain has been dented, but wasn't it Ham, Lamb, and Jam Jones? Remember them? That was some of the greatest names in the Mount Rushmore of college names. Yes. I mean, that was the greatest.
Well, Ham Jones was from Hamlin, Texas. Lamb Jones was from Lampasas, Texas.
Wow. I didn't know that.
And then Jam Jones, they called him Jam because he was from LA, and he came in and he didn't have a pair of jeans or cowboy boots, and they loved it. Ham and Lamb went out and bought him some Texas clothes because he was too LA for Texas, and so they loved to tell that story.
That's funny.
Those are some of the greatest names ever.
1982, 1983, right in that time.
You know what I wish?
A little bit earlier than that.
A little bit earlier.
But if Ham, Lamb, and Jam were alive today, I mean, we're playing at Texas today, we could get them to order some boots from Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee, and they would ship them to them, and they would wear them. But man, those are some of the greatest names ever. But Jimmy, jump back in here. We got about 10 minutes left in this segment here on Friday, college football. It's the day after Thanksgiving. A lot of people out shopping, listening to us, and we appreciate you taking the time to listen to us and watch us.
Hey,
well, Kent, what I thought was an interesting sidebar to this A&M Texas story was that 6 or 7 years ago, Tom Herman and Kevin Sumlin were very vocal about their desire to resume the series, but it was Steve Patterson who, without question, will go down as the most unpopular athletic director in University of Texas history. He was adamant about trying to spread the Texas Longhorn marketing message to Australia, Asia, and all that type of stuff. And
I hear the horns are big in Bangladesh.
Before he got
especially Sri Lanka.
Before he got unceremoniously dismissed 3 or 4 weeks after a fateful Board of Trustees meeting in Chicago before the Notre Dame season opener one year. But they really wanted some, the coaches wanted that series to resume. And I think if anybody else would have been the athletic director, they probably would have played 3 or 4 times by now.
I agree. But like you just said, this is a decision that goes, far up the pay grade of the coaches, and probably will even go up to the chancellor of A&M in Texas. A&M and Texas both get their money from the same pot. It's called the PUF, the Permanent University Fund. And that's out there in West Texas where all that great Texas crude grows.
That oil.
It just keeps, and when oil is going up, even though a lot of people don't like it around the country, Texas people like it because it means more money for Texas and A&M.
It's how you can pay off those A&M coaches $90 million to get rid of.
Oh my God!
I tell you, if Ken, you made the point about letting 85 or 90 million walk out the building. That's a great way to look at it because that's what it is. But Texas and Texas A&M, like Auburn and Alabama, are self-funded from private donors.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So if you got to be careful if you're asking your donors to give money to keep paying for these buyouts of these terrible coaching hires. And again, I can't see how Ross Bjork could survive if Jimbo walks the Green Mile, because he's the one who, for no reason other than they were afraid somebody would come get Jimbo Fisher, signed him up to that long-term contract. And you know who else needs to be walking the Green Mile is the guy who did the deal with Mel Tucker at Michigan State. And Auburn, I hope Auburn people don't make this mistake. Kevin Skarbinski wrote about it several years ago. When are they going to learn their lesson about these long contracts with these ridiculous buyouts?
Scott Woodward is like the guy that finds the $100 bill at the racetrack, picks it up, and looks around to make sure nobody saw him. He could have had egg on his face, I'm telling you.
Yeah. Well,
love him at LSU, but that was a bad hire.
Yeah, but somebody's got to be held accountable for these coaching malpractice hires, Ken. And it's really, and if you're asking your donors to give money to cover up for cat litter in the cat box, shame on you.
Just because you can go back out to the back 40 and tap 4 more wells, don't mean you don't have to justify it.
That money can be spent on a lot of other things.
Well, but I get asked this a lot, and not a single penny tuition for the 50,000 students here on campus goes to the athletic department. Yeah. The athletic department is completely self-funded. In fact, the athletic department actually funds some of academia. That's how much money they make. And of course, it's a gold mine here at the university. That's why
for the network.
Exactly. And then going to the SEC, it's going to be even more of a gold mine, with the TV revenue. But that's the problem, Rob, is that nobody is ever held accountable anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just constantly amazed at that nobody's ever held accountable. People will be okay. You'll be held accountable. We're going to let you go, but we're going to give you $40 million out the door. I mean, I wish I had a job like that back in the day.
Well, it's like the federal government. This project will cost between 50 and 75 billion. Well, that's a pretty big, variant. I mean,
I'd like to be out on 38, spending 17.5 million at a raw bar. Like my
it's really silly because what we have seen happen. And I think what is going to happen is someone's going to have to call the bluff when these coaches. What the agent does is gets the athletic director and the president in his back pocket, scares them into thinking that their coach, his client, is being pursued by another school. Right now, what's going on with Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, he's getting a lot of people a raise. And now, this situation, until it's resolved, and it better be resolved by Monday, you hope, Ole Miss people are unhappy. Auburn people are going, I don't know. And who knows, like Doug Dean and I were talking, could be a ruse. Auburn may bring in somebody that no one's even talking about, like LSU did last year with Brian Kelly. And then Lincoln Riley went out to Southern Cal, took 22 Oklahoma players with him.
Well,
if Kiffin leaves, who's he taking with him?
Closer to home, everybody around here is wondering what's going to happen to Gary Patterson. Gary Patterson got a soft landing after being, let go at TCU. He's been a coach's assistant all year, but of course he's been more than a coach's assistant to this defense.
Yeah.
Is he willing to just kind of kick back and keep doing this, or does he want another head coaching job, or he can get another head coaching job like that, But I had heard after he left TCU, it was kind of mutual. He was kind of burned out on the whole NIL thing that he had to deal with, on the recruiting stuff. And he just didn't want to deal with it anymore. But I'm sure that somebody is going to come calling after this season and want Gary Patterson to come be their head coach. So it'll be interesting to see if he goes.
Who do you think is the top coach? Because you're really good. You love Leopold. There are a lot of coaches that you have said might be the next wonder boy. Who do you see right now as that? Because Lane's shine, I think, is off. Even after last night, that was not a good look.
I'm waiting to see.
I know, and that was. I tell you what, I really thought after they marched the ball down there and scored that touchdown that they were gonna, make that 2 points and send into overtime, and that was just not a well executed 2-point play. But Leopold that's going to be. You're right. That's going to be a very interesting question because nobody ever thought Kansas would ever be this good. Their last, the last time they went to a bowl, Mike Mangino was the coach.
Yeah. Well, I think that
the big fella.
Leopold, but he's already agreed to this extension with Kansas through 2029, and it sounds like he's serious about sticking to it. But I'm waiting to see what Power 5 coach is going to hire Jamie Chadwell at Coastal
Georgia
Carolina.
Tech.
He is I think so. I think he would be perfect at Georgia Tech. But I don't think Gary wants to be a head coach, but I think he would jump at the defensive coordinator job at Alabama. That could be a really interesting because I noticed after the game in Austin that that Saban sought out Gary, to talk to him after the game because he was impressed with that game plan that they put together, and I think that would be a job he would take.
We got about a minute left, guys, and that's a good point, Jimmy, because right now you got Pete Golding and Charles Kelly as co-defensive coordinators, but what's that getting?
That's
it's
about to go out the door.
Yeah. Hey, look, let me say this real quick. Go out and help somebody with the expectation of getting nothing in return. Do it out of the goodness of your heart. Don't give to get, give to give, because most often we will see the face of Christ in the least among us. We live in the greatest country in the world, folks. 95% of life is showing up with a smile on your face, positive attitude, full tank of gas, something to eat, a couple of extra boxes of shells, okay? That's how it is. Ken, tell people how they can follow you. And again, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a great show today, as always.
Just go to fwaa.net and you'll see all the great writers posting things from games around the country.
Hey, look, a lot of football today. Everybody, I recommend you get some exercise, move around before you get scoliosis being curled up on the couch watching all this football today. But got a great show in store for you tomorrow morning, the Saturday College Football Roundtable on Sidelines. Again, thanks everybody for listening. We love our listeners. We appreciate you. See you tomorrow.
Roll Green Wave.